Number 11, Giant Lego Man. Now, when I say giant Lego man, I don't mean like a foot or 2 feet tall. This giant Lego guy was 8 feet tall and weighed over 100 pounds. But what's really bizarre is that this figure didn't land on a beach once or twice, but actually 3 different times in 3 different places. Which makes you wonder not only who the heck is making these Lego guys, but why they ended up in places like the UK, Florida, and Los Angeles. But it gets even weirder. This particular model of Lego, called Ego Leonard, had a really weird shirt on him. Each version of him all had the words, "No real than you are," inscribed on the torso of the man. What does that mean? No one knows, and many more questions about him haven't been answered. Number 10, sports-themed Flyswatters. The truth of the matter is that almost anything can land in the ocean, and then be subsequently carried to a beach if the current or tide is strong enough. A great example of this can be found in 2012 in Kodiak, Alaska. It was there that a very odd set of things came onto the shoreline. Flyswatters. What? But these weren't just regular Flyswatters. No, these were ones shaped or embedded with sports team logos. Sports-themed Flyswatters. And they were hitting the shoreline by the dozens. So the residents gathered them up and kept them for themselves. Now, if you're curious how this happened, don't worry, so were they. In fact, the residents initially thought that this was the result of a tsunami that came in 2011, but that turned out to not be the case. Instead, a cargo ship near Asia was hit by a massive wave, and when it was, several cargo containers were knocked off the ship and landed in the water. They opened and the contents went into the ocean. Being lighter than most things, the Flyswatters rose to the top and made their way to Alaska, where they made several people very happy as they got free Flyswatters. Number 9, Giant Eyeball. In 2012 in Fort Lauderdale in Florida, a man was just walking along the beach when he saw a large, perfectly round object. When he got a closer look at the object, he realized that he was looking at a giant eyeball. The man took the eyeball home and put it in his refrigerator so that it could be preserved until the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission could come and get it. Hold up, would you take this thing home and put it next to the food in your fridge? The eyeball was about the size of a softball, so the scientists were very intrigued to find out where it had come from. They were able to debunk rumors that it was some kind of monster eye, and instead found that it was from a swordfish. For the record, swordfish can grow to a long length and weigh up to an incredible 1,400 pounds. Did you know that? Scientists noticed distinctive cut marks on the eye, which means that someone actually cut it out of the swordfish. But how it went from being cut out to being washed up on the beach is a cruel mystery. Before we continue talking about strange things washed up on beaches, I want to thank you for checking out the channel. You're awesome. And you would be even cooler if you liked this video and hit that subscribe button. Number 8, sea monsters. There are many tales of monsters washing up on the shore. In fact, one case of a mermaid washing up is still talked about to this day. For the people of Seram Island in Indonesia, though, they had a different kind of monster that washed up on their shores. I say monster because at the time of its discovery, it was more of a blob of flesh and other materials than it was an identifiable creature. In fact, because it couldn't be identified quickly, word spread that it may actually have been some kind of real sea monster never known or seen before. After some research, though, it turned out that the sea monster was a baleen whale, one that had gone through some serious decomposition before it had washed up upon the shore of the island. According to scientists, it had been dead for weeks or even months, and adding that to the water moving it around, it caused the whale to be unrecognizable. But aside from the visual horrors, there's another reason to stay away. Because not only is it scary or spooky, it would be releasing some pretty foul, nauseous gases. There were many more monsters like this discovered on beaches, and each one has caused a stir because of their strange appearances. Number 7. Wax clumps. When you see something that's really odd, or you just don't know what it is, you're drawn to it, and you can't help but wonder what you're looking at and how it got there. We are curious by nature. This is exactly what happened in France in July of 2017 at one of their beaches. For across 37 miles of French beaches, yellow objects of unknown origin started to wash on shore. But not just one or two, but whole clumps. No one was sure what was going on. They smelled and looked like paraffin wax. But how they got onto the beaches or why there was so many is still a mystery. Naturally, once discovered, they were reported to the necessary authorities, and research immediately began on what they were and how they got there, as well as if they were a danger to humans or animals in the area, which is a legitimate thing to worry about given the suddenness of their arrival. It's believed that these wax clumps are a byproduct of grease coming out of a boat's exhaust. A cleanup crew was sent in to remove the strange lumps. People in France just hope it doesn't happen again. Perhaps boats need to keep up on the cleaning and maintenance of their boat parts. Number 6. Thousands of shoes. Shoes are something you wear on your feet and you find in stores. But on a Dutch island called Terschelling, you potentially have the option of finding them on the beach. Beachgoers went one morning and found thousands of shoes just strewn across the coastline. Not hundreds, but thousands. More interesting, they were all running shoes. A ship had been going through a storm, and the storm knocked a container carrying the shoes into the water, which led to the shoes being along the beach. I wonder if anyone tried any on. Number 5. Rubber ducks. This is a story to where the circumstances far outshine the absurdity of the object that was found on the beach. For indeed, rubber ducks have been found on beaches in the past, but in this case, it was not something as ordinary as you might think. It eventually became a major scientific endeavor. Just like certain other washed-up objects, there was an accident at sea, and a crate full of rubber ducks was tossed into the ocean and then broke apart, releasing thousands of rubber ducks into the world's ocean. And it wasn't just one lucky beach that these ducks washed upon, they went everywhere. How did it happen? The ship that was carrying the ducks was going from Hong Kong to the United States. Because of where the crate was dropped into the water, it was carried by many different currents and tides to various parts of the world. These ducks have been found for over 20 years in places like South America, Australia, Hawaii, Alaska, Scotland, Newfoundland, and the Atlantic. There are even cases of these ducks being caught in the Arctic. So, while unfortunate, these ducks have actually helped scientists understand the currents and tides of the ocean. Now, a question you might be asking is, how many ducks were in that crate? Well, there were 28,000 of them in there, and many of them have still not been recovered, meaning there's potentially more scientific study to be done. Number 4. Sea pickles. Having sea creatures appear on the beach is not that bizarre. It happens quite a bit. Such was the case in 2017 when a veritable horde of sea pickles started showing up on coastlines of the northern United States. The technical name, if you want to get technical, for these creatures are pyrosomes, and they're actually native to more tropical waters of the world, making it all the more curious why they were showing up in places like Oregon. Not to mention the numbers of these sea pickles was boggling the minds of both scientists and the people who found them. There was a lot of them. At first, we didn't know what to make of these odd creatures coming up in our nets, but as we headed north and further offshore, we started to get more and more, said Hilary Sorensen, a University of Oregon graduate student who is aboard the Shimada on its May research trip near Oregon. We began counting and measuring them to try and get a better understanding of their size and distribution related to the local environment conditions. Scientists took the opportunity to study these creatures and see what was causing their population explosion, especially since their overgrown numbers were hurting a lot of things, including the fisheries, as the crews of boats were pulling up nets full of sea pickles instead of fish. Number 3. Dinosaur bone. There are many out there who work very, very hard to go and dig up dinosaur bones in order to learn more about the ancient past. But to just find one washed up on a beach, that almost feels like cheating. This happened in Washington State's San Juan Islands. A part of a femur from an 80-million-year-old dinosaur was casually found within a bit of marine rock. This find was incredibly significant because it was the first proof ever that dinosaurs had indeed roamed in Washington. Try to picture that for a second. Dinosaurs in Seattle? The fossil itself was not the easiest to retrieve. It was so fused into the rock that it took an entire day to get it out, but the results were very much worth it. Number 2, by-the-wind sailors. The movements of the ocean can cause all sorts of things to wash upon the beach. I mean, check out those waves. But sometimes it's also the wind that helps guide these things. Such as in 2014, when on the western coast of the United States, a series of blue entities known as by-the-wind sailors were blown onto the shorelines in incredible numbers. Beachgoers were confronted by millions of squishy blue animals that look a lot like jellyfish, but each was topped with a rigid structure resembling a sail. They were alive, too. They sit at the surface of the ocean and have little sails, and their movement depends on which way the wind is blowing, said Richard Broder, a fishery biologist at NOAA Fisheries Newport, Oregon research station. So, what happened? Usually, these creatures are only a few inches long. For the most part, they stay on the surface of the ocean and reside in warm waters. But every couple of years or so, the winds shift in just the right way, and hundreds of them are blown onto the shore. In 2010, this happened again, and the result was that these sailors accumulated at the bottom of the ocean near the shore and filled up several feet of water. Number 1, ice balls. At first, this doesn't seem all that strange. Ice balls? Ice is water, right? Well, let's head to a place where these spheres of ice are actually being thrusted upon the shore by the waves of the ocean. In Lake Michigan, the ice in the water can actually be rotated by the waves in such a way that they actually form spheres. Decent-sized ones, too. But in 2013, the ice balls got a lot bigger. How much bigger? They were the size of basketballs and were said to weigh around 50 pounds each. The people who are used to this phenomenon even noted that they had never got that big before. It makes one wonder what caused the size change, and if that's going to be the last size change, because if they were to get much bigger, it could cause a lot of problems for people going forward. Thanks for watching. What do you think of these weird things found on the beach? What's the weirdest or coolest thing you ever found on the beach? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye!